amigos de USALA Media, estamos aquí de nuevo en Compass. Les habla Fernando Méndez. Este programa lo dirige Dani Ramos en compañía de Dylan De Rosato and his able team. We have a special guest today, Lois Volta, a writer. And we're talking about her first book and the interesting title of the book. So we'll explore all kinds of things. But we'll start with a little biographical sketch. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you can give me the 30-second elevator speech.
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me, Fernando.
You're welcome. Our pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started my domestics business as a cleaning lady in 2015. And as I was working cleaning for people, I started noticing a correlation between a decluttered space and a decluttered mind. So I started thinking about the mental health behind domestic work. From there, I started exploring, understanding the effects on the environment and the body with cleaning products. And one thing that I noticed even more so was the connection between gender equality within the home, which brought me to start writing with the inequalities between men and women, particularly within the house. So I started writing for Grid magazine in 2018. I had a feminist domestics column in Grid magazine for 3.5 years, and it led me to write my book. Through that, I also was asked by an agency called Hand in Hand, which is an organization that empowers domestic employers of nannies, housekeepers, and caregivers to have dignified rights for house care providers. Mm-hmm. I was asked to sit on their agency council, which is a nationwide agency council to help be an advocate for domestic workers' rights. And more recently, I was asked to sit on the Philadelphia task force to uphold the Philadelphia Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights.
Wow, it's quite a short resume with a lot of things in it. So the book we're talking about is Confessions of a Cleaning Lady.
That's right.
You're not a cleaning lady now. You're a writer.
Well, I do own a cleaning service.
You own a cleaning service.
I own a cleaning service.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it started with my hands.
Right. Mm-hmm. But yeah, over the years, I've seen all immigrants doing that kind of job. Mm-hmm. The last one that I was in contact with, a Russian lady. Mm-hmm. And curiously enough, she would bring like 4 girls with her and do the house in 2 hours. Well, they all distribute themselves through the house, and boom, it was all done quickly.
Right.
So, and I appreciate that kind of job is especially if you start alone. One of the problems, I suppose, is health insurance.
Sure.
Immediately.
Sure. Well, that's why organizations like Hand in Hand help give insurance to domestic workers through an extra fee that a domestic employer might pay to help cycle back into being able to give domestic workers health insurance. But yeah, I started my company as a single mom, and I didn't go to college, so I didn't have a degree to be able to find a career that was suitable to be a single mom. So I found that the quickest way to get food on the table and pay rent was through being a nanny and cleaning for friends and friends of family. And what I found was, after the encouragement of my family, they said, Lois, if you're going to be doing this, you might as well get your LLC, hire some people, and do it right. Right. So that was really scary for me, because not only was it seem like such a big leap, it also, I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to get locked in to being a cleaning lady. It's almost like I was looking down my nose at myself because I thought that I could have done better or should be doing better. So this idea of honoring domestic work kind of came from having the self-exploration of being able to value myself and the work that I was doing. So a lot of what the book is to help empower people to not only honor domestic work, but honor all the hands that came before.
So we will explore the book in more depth, but you remark about not having a degree and therefore making it more difficult for you to find employment. Reminds me of the governor of Pennsylvania, what he did, one of his first acts as the new governor, Shapiro, he removed the requirements for a college degree for any jobs with Pennsylvania. And I thought that was one of the most brilliant ideas, because there are people walking around with life experience.
That's right.
Who can perform all kinds of tasks.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, I know people with diplomas who are complete idiots. So.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I was just listening. It's disturbing to hear a senator from Alabama, the Tuberville, and he is an absurd person to be in the Senate. He's right now he's got the military appointments paralyzed because he doesn't agree with the issues of abortion that the military, the rules the military has for that. So women don't want to enroll in the military if they're going to be assigned to places like Alabama where there are no rights for women. So it's as much as things change. Reminds me of the French saying, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more things change, the more they are the same. So as much as we have advanced, all these things still around. Well, this mentality right now against women that obviously inherited from the previous occupant of the White House. We have seen the effects of that.
Yes.
So it's encouraging that, what do you say about trying to find yourself and trying to, stop looking down at the kind of job that you had to do? It's a very common experience for almost any immigrant. I was working, I went to college, and then my first job was room service, working at a Holiday Inn. That was my first job. So your job cannot define you, especially if you have a rich mind, ideas, motivation to change.
To get back to your point about how our culture has been pigeonholing women, particularly, but more in the context of a conversation, domestic work, I found that the most progressive couples that you and I might know that really advocate for women's rights and women's liberation and equal rights and equal pay,
right.
The majority of those couples do not exercise gender equality within their own homes. Wow. That's not the case in my home. Good for you. Good for you.
I'm not the ultimate authority.
But just even the norms of, for instance, if I were to be asked to come to someone's home and walk through their house and define what support needs to be given. And I like to try to change the framework of saying help,
Right.
moving from hiring help to support, because it's more inclusive.
Right.
And it gives it a little bit more weight.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it's a more dignified approach
right.
to the whole
That's right.
experience.
And when you subtly can change language around the context of domestic work, it gives more nuance. It gives more, it gives more dignity.
Yes.
So when I walk through a home, I'm usually walking through the home for the first time with a woman, and I found that she might describe the type of domestic support she needs and she wants, and that she knows the family can afford. But the buck gets stopped short when it comes to actually scheduling time at her male partner's wallet. So even within progressive couples, the idea of how much domestic support is worth is it's very clear and very evident, particularly in this type of work. So you find people who are underpaid. You know, it would be more economic for someone to hire somebody at a very low wage than have a more ethically minded company like mine.
So yes, I think the hourly rate at least should be something that people can live off.
That's right.
That's what I would say.
That's right.
This minimum wage is $15 an hour. That nobody can survive on that.
That's right.
And without health insurance, you know, sometimes transportation, whatever, all those things that are.
That's right.
People should take into account that this is the kind of job that doesn't have that many benefits, and therefore the rates can be higher.
That's right. Organizations like the National Domestic Workers Alliance is also an organization that fights for domestic rights for people who are working, and also to help shift the legislation to protect domestic workers. Everyone who's a domestic worker, no matter if it's house cleaner, nanny, caregiver, I encourage them to be a member of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Even over the pandemic, they were sending out gift cards and money to domestic workers just to help support them through a time. But it's also a really beautiful resource for domestic workers. And
so are you still hiring people for your company?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yes. And I'm actually have found it very difficult to hire people more lately because of the connotations of domestic work. With so many jobs available right now, and with the staffing crisis that we're having, finding cleaners is a lot harder than you think it might be.
Hotels and restaurants are having a very difficult time right now.
Yes.
So it's not rare to go to a restaurant and you can see that they need more help. They can't find it. They will tell you.
Yes.
We're trying, but we can't find it.
That's right. Before the pandemic, I had a staff of 15, and now I have a staff of 4.
Wow.
And I post all the time about finding cleaners.
So somebody who wants to find you, where do they go?
Well, they can go to thevoltaway.com.
The Volta
Way.
W-A-Y.
That's right.
.com.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, well, maybe we'll put it at the bottom of the screen.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Do people have to speak English to work for you?
No.
No?
I am hoping to learn Spanish, but I do not know Spanish.
Right.
But it shouldn't prohibit being able to work together.
Good. Because if that's an obstacle, obviously, because somebody has to understand once you go through a house, directions about what to do and all that.
That's right.
It's necessary.
I've also developed a whole method in which I train staff and the way that we approach the home in general, which is a big part of my book, of having a systematic, methodical way of approaching a house, which makes it not only easy for cleaners, but to help empower people to clean up after themselves.
Well, Lois, we have taken an unexpected tour here.
Yeah.
I was hoping to talk about the book right away, but I don't mind this. This is a good exploration of another issue that needs to be addressed. So maybe we'll take a brief pause here in USALA Media. We are with Lois Volta, speaking about her book, Confessions of a Cleaning Lady. No se vayan, regresamos en un momento. Pagano's Market and Bar has been serving gourmet Italian foods in Center City for 3 generations. Call Matthew Pagano for all your catering needs, and during these difficult times, please mention Fernando Mendez and receive a nice discount along with free delivery. Pagano's also makes the finest gift boxes in the city for all your holiday needs. Visit paganosmarketandbar.com. Amigos de USALA Media, estamos aquí de nuevo en Compass, en compañía de Lois Volta. Her book is Confessions of a Cleaning Lady. And so now we can talk a little bit about the book. We go back to the other topic, but there are somehow at this point we are sort of going back and forth because the topic of what we're talking about, justice and equality, payment, all that stuff, and then the politics of this, which, as you alluded to in one of your segments in the book, our democracy and how you see this. How did you approach the topic of democracy in the context of this book?
Sure. Well, I found that there is this attitude of, particularly in some men, not all men, of course, but that within the home you can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. And this is not just for men, it's for all people. There's this plague almost in the heart of the American people called individualism. And it takes away from community, camaraderie, and the family structure. So you can see it as blatant, as in the Capitol riot, that people came into the Capitol and it didn't matter what they did and it didn't matter what they said. It didn't matter that there would be people of color cleaning up feces and glass all over the floor. It didn't matter. They gave no dignity. It doesn't matter. To I'm going to come home and put my socks on the floor and somebody else is going to clean them up. And yes, and then I'm going to wait for my food.
Right.
So it's this taking the macro and kind of putting it into the micro. And what I express in my family and to my clients and my community, and hopefully the people who read my book, is that when we have agency in our own homes, when we liberate those that we love in our own homes, when we have a sense of camaraderie and a type of control where you can experience the sublime in the mundane, it builds the family, it builds our households, it builds our community, so we can look out of our windows with more hope, right? And we can then be more active community members, looking at something bigger as our city, without feeling like we're about to trash it all because we can just do and say whatever we want. And it's important to teach our children that. If our children go to school and they learn how to put their toys away, how come when they come home they can just trash the living room and expect mommy to come clean it up? Right? So we have to teach our children how to take personal responsibility within their own homes and their own lives to address that we are part of something bigger than just you and your toys. So they have a deeper understanding of not to throw trash on the ground because it's going to trash the whole planet, which is what we're doing.
Right. Well, in more pedestrian language, you alluded to the fact that so many men are pigs, period. You have to say it the way it is, and demanding at home and so occasionally drinking too much and leading to violence, abusive behavior towards the spouse, but also towards the children in that same context.
Or mother, sister,
Right.
friend.
So, well, those are really deeper issues than just talking about the behavior of those people coming to the Capitol. And so many of them just joined a cult. And within that belief, they're entitled to anything that the cult leader says is okay. So you can assault the Capitol, you can be violent, you can attack police, and destroy property, what you just mentioned. The list of things is unbelievable. And so many of them are now going to prison because of that.
Isn't the fabric of our patriarchal culture a cult as well?
But I thought, maybe I'm naive. I thought the new generations have moved past a lot of that behavior. I have a son who is not at all like what you have described, and I know many young people who share responsibilities at home. They don't treat their spouse as a servant, but as a companion, as a collaborator.
And that's so beautiful. And a lot of young people have no idea what they're doing because everything has shifted so much. And I get nervous and worried for the younger generations because the lives that they have ahead of them aren't the ones that were promised to them or that were reflected to them. It's different. Things change. But the art of domesticity, of having people over for dinner, of having warm environments. I mean, we're in a convenience culture where you can push a button and all of a sudden dinner arrives. That young people are moving in together and they don't know how to do domestic tasks or who does what, because young women might say, well, I'm not going to do it the way that my mom did it, and I'm not going to be treated the way that my father treated my mother. And young men might say, how can I be here? I don't know. It wasn't modeled for me, and I don't know what to do. So within my book, I talk a lot about that, but it's a heart issue in a lot of ways. It's a heart issue by exploring what we might be afraid of. Are we afraid of humbling ourselves? Are we afraid of using the vulnerability of not knowing how to do something as a power to bridge the equality gap?
Yes, it's a core issue.
That's right.
About education, about raising our children properly, and that has repercussions throughout their individual lives, their family lives, their society, wherever they live, their city, state, and the country at large, and how we live. What kind of society are we going to have for the future if we don't address some of these deep issues that are troublesome?
That's right. That's right. And I mean, as we're seeing, women's rights are being taken away.
There you are. Yeah, I mean, the thing that the women in the military who cannot, are not interested in joining because they have no rights as soon as they go to a state where there are no rights.
Right, right. And just even abortion rights and the woman's bodily autonomy being taken away.
Right.
It's a huge issue. And the rise of the incel movement, it's a huge issue.
Right. So what do we do with the mentality of this senator I mentioned from Alabama, saying that, because they asked him a question about whether or not he's a white nationalist. He says, yes, that's who we are. He doesn't understand what the term means. Does he know that what the Nazi mentality was? Just like basic information that he should know. So it was a tremendous display of ignorance. But he reflects a lot of the people in the Republican Party, that's what they believe. And they are following blindly this leader that is leading them towards the abyss. It's destroying the party. And so many people don't care. And that's where leadership comes. Where are the leaders that should be more outspoken? They should raise their hands, say, that's not true. Let's get rid of this man because he's running again. And it's hard to believe. He's ahead in the polls. So are we going to have a repetition? If he comes back, this is going to be worse than the first round. Because now he will feel empowered. It's unbelievable. I mean, now I've gone into another topic because as we mentioned before, that's one of my favorite things to do, address Mr. Trump. and his prejudice, his ignorance. When you talk about struggling with the job and trying to sort of identify yourself, not so much with the job itself, but knowing that you have deeper aspirations, bigger aspirations, but this is a stepping stone towards whatever the future was at that moment. But that is the most common experience for immigrants. Trying to find a job, any kind of job.
Right.
Just to be able to survive here.
Right. And that's why I really want to redefine the importance of domestic work and how important it is for mental health. For instance, if you look at community behavioral health therapists, the burnout rate of the helpers to help those who are struggling is so high, because not only are they there for those in their community that are struggling from trauma, gun violence, and just the crime that's happening and just injustices in general, but they're coming home and they're feeling completely burnt out with a already compounded, responsibilities of what a household demands. Right? So then what if people like that were given domestic support? Would they feel so burnt out? What about single parents who are holding 3 or 4 jobs? What about people who are having a hard time finding work? What if they were given domestic support? Domestic support is so valuable. It's so important, just not only for mental health, but quality of living. Yeah. Because the amount of pressures it is just to run. And for me, as a single parent of 3 children, it's a lot of work. And I'm a professional, right? And I understand how much work it takes to run a household. It's when I have domestic support, it's so valuable. It's so valuable, but our culture has deemed it the bottom of the barrel. So within my book, I like to think about maybe it's a bottom-up situation. Maybe it's the people at the bottom or deemed the bottom, because I don't really think we're at the bottom. I do think, honestly, I am a Quaker too, so I believe we are all equal. We're all equal. But maybe it is a message from the bottom. That's what this book is. It's the message from the bottom. It's a message from the cleaning lady.
Now that you mentioned the Quaker aspect, one of the most annoying things is to hear how these people with such ignorance and prejudice and tendency to violent reactions identify themselves as Christians.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You know?
Yes.
The other topic you mentioned is behavioral health. Should appeal to Freddie, the owner of this radio station, Freddie Ramirez. And we have a couple of people who have shows here, programs, who deal with the topic of drug addiction and behavioral health. And so you should watch USALA Radio, because this is something we tend to address often, talk about those topics that are really everyday concerns. We should know more about this. We should understand better.
That's right.
The plight of people. As you say, they're at the bottom right now because of income or whatever, but they're not at the bottom emotionally, intellectually.
That's right.
We should have more respect for that. So anyway, this you lead me into so many. You open a Pandora's box of things here. So estamos en compañía de la escritora Lois Volta. Acaba de publicar un libro, el diario de una persona en servicio de limpieza, The Confessions of a Cleaning Lady. Regresamos en un momento. Amigos de USALA Media, estamos aquí de nuevo en Campus, en compañía de Lois Volta. Dani Ramos y Dylan de Rosato dirigen este programa. Les habla Fernando Méndez y estamos hablando de la salud mental, mental health. You were talking about behavior and in the context of the other topic, which was that attack on the Capitol and attack on democracy. That continues. It's every day. And so it always brings to mind that we have to stay alert. That it's not just that it happened, okay, now and they are being prosecuted, a few of them are going to jail, blah, blah. It's present. Clear and present danger. That's what it is. It's every day. So we have to be aware of this, aware that democracy needs to be defended. That if we seek equality, we cannot leave it to the government, to the authorities, to other people. We have to get involved. We have to behave at all levels, as you were talking about. Even the people who come to clean our house, the people who, if you have a garden and they come to clean your garden, people who come to paint. I love the fact that the most expensive things right now are electricians, roofers, plumbers. They come to my house for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like $120. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, that is a huge, I think about that all the time. I really do. And right there, you basically just described the pay gap between men and women, even within the labor sector of domestic work.
Right.
Now, the work that I do now is, so I send cleaning teams to people's homes, and that is a certain price. But if I come to someone's home, I can help strategize and do more consulting. So there's a different hourly rate for that.
Sure.
So I can try to compete with my male, friends who also are business owners. But there's no way I could send one of my cleaning professionals to go to a job the same way that my friend who's a plumber, could send one of his guys. There's just no way I could send that somebody would pay the same price.
Right.
And I think a lot of that is because people have in their minds that cleaning, it's been something that has been free for so long.
Yeah.
Usually done by the hands of women.
The wife,
by the hands
usually.
of women, yes.
That's why you got married. You pay the wife to clean.
Has been historically the outlook.
And that's a birthday gift. You will buy a new vacuum cleaner.
And I've been given gifts like that in the past, and I have not been happy. Yeah, so to that pay gap. I know. It's so ingrained in our culture.
And it continues at all levels too. There's a certain like the glass ceiling that a few people have gone through it, but not enough women. It's not the most common thing to happen.
That's why within my company I try to empower, myself and my staff and the people whom I work with to think about the house in a different way. If it is more like support, if it is strategizing, caring, and really being a holistic presence in a home, how can my clients value it so much more that not only do they pay the hourly rate that I believe is fair, but tip very heavily, because that's the type of money that goes directly back into community. It goes directly into local businesses. It's right. To me, one of the best ways you can spend your money.
Do you think the landscape will change if more women come to power? Right now, we're in a sense, we are in a good position in Philly. We have two women who are possible next mayor. Rebecca Reinhardt and Cheryl Parker, and they're competing with Alan Dom and Brown. But that's a good situation to have women who are capable and project a sense of professionalism and power that they, you feel comfortable voting for them. It's a disaster that Hillary Clinton didn't win. This country is not ready for a female president. I don't understand.
Well, maybe they will be soon.
Maybe soon, huh?
Yeah, maybe soon.
Well, we need a female mayor first
Yes,
here.
we do. We need lots more women in power.
How would that change the landscape?
To have more women in power?
Yeah.
Just to have to have the female perspective at the forefront of policymaking is, if you think about femininity, I talk a lot about, at least my last show, so I also have a radio show called The Everyday Feminist, and our last...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I have it's on through G-Town Radio.
When do you sleep?
I don't know. Great question. But the last show that I did was on femininity and what defines something as feminine or not feminine. And a lot of traits that are defined as feminine aren't necessarily feminine traits, right? You have empathy, good communicators, caring. Like, these things aren't necessarily defined by a woman or a man.
Right.
But if you have those types of traits more in the forefront of policy making, it definitely will push the needle towards a more equal society.
We need more men with higher emotional intelligence.
That's right. Absolutely. And emotional intelligence costs something, that it's usually a price that is hard to pay, particularly when it comes to the house. And that's the first place where I believe the change has to come, by being able to put down the remote, or put down the golf clubs, or put down particular things that have been a privilege to be able to do at the expense of the person that's cooking the meal.
Yes. It's marriage as a partnership and not this unequal relationship that it's a traditional family.
That's
where the
right.
man decides everything and the woman is just listening and obeying and cleaning and raising children.
That's right. And that looks different for every family.
Yeah.
It really does. And even in same-sex marriages, a lot of times there's a push and pull with who does what. But the truth is if we want to have a respectful, equal world, we have to be respectful and equal in our own places where we are.
Yeah. The whole thing about raising children, single women raising children, and it's just a lot of women. You have your own experience.
Yes.
And that's difficult.
Yes.
Not only because of the support, monetary support, but also the help in decision making, in discipline, and menial tasks that you have to perform, and you have to double. You have to be a double yourself, huh?
That's right. I have to carry both. What's seen as masculine and feminine. I have to be my own provider and protector, and my own my own mother and nurturer and carer. You have to hold it all to be a single parent.
So that whole structure of the man leaving after breakfast and coming home late at night for dinner, that model has to be changed.
Sure.
Will this new...
well, let me put it this way,
Yeah.
Fernando. I was in a relationship, not with the girl's father, but after I separated from the girl's father. On a more personal note, I was in a relationship where it was far more work to be in partnership with a man because of the amount of work it required to be in relationship with him. The amount of caring and nurturing and cleaning up after, and the lack of emotional intelligence. it took far more work. It's easier to be a single mother as a feminist at times, unless you find the right partner.
I understand. But I mean, I do believe that a lot of the problems that we face in society right now have to do with the early years, that education at home, how you raise your children.
Yes.
You know, I'm not saying that single women are not capable of raising, capable children. But it's not the ideal situation, I suppose.
I mean, it depends. I mean, if you were to come to my home and you were to meet my children, you might say something different.
Right.
Right? Because I'm raising my children to be empathetic, kind, take care of themselves. I hope that they succeed in their academics and that they are good students and have opportunities in this world. But really, my job as a parent is to know that when they leave my home, they know how to cook for themselves, they know how to do their laundry, and most of all, that they have a heart bent towards love.
Yeah.
And that, to me, defines the success of a parent, to raise capable people who know how to live in this world, whose heart is bent towards love.
But just for the record, I was not saying any. I was not contradicting that.
No, I know. Yeah,
I was saying,
the
I was saying single women raising children are capable of raising very good children.
That's right. Yes.
I believe that.
Yes.
Well, this has been very interesting. You need more time to discuss your book.
Yeah, I talk a lot about raising children in the book as well.
Okay, well, so we recommend the book. Will you raise the book so the audience can see it? Confessions of a Cleaning Lady, Lois Volta. So, where can we find that book?
You can find it on my website.
Okay.
thevoltaway.com.
Thevoltaway.com. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a couple bookstores. There's one in Chestnut Hill, Booked. It's in that bookstore, and the Spiral Bookcase in Manayunk.
Okay. Well, Lois, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for
having me. It's been informative and entertaining.
Thank you for having me, Fernando.
You're very welcome. I hope this is not the last time we see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome back. Amigos oyentes de USALA Media, hemos llegado al final de este programa con Lois Volta, quien escribió Confessions of a Cleaning Lady. Este programa lo dirigió Dani Ramos en compañía de Dylan de Rosato. Se despide Fernando Méndez. Hasta la próxima.